Hey guys, it's Wallace115 and here it is, the PC build video I've been talking to you about. You're going to find out how exactly I managed to build a PC for $250, and I actually did build it. I'm using it to record this video right now, and it's pretty fantastic. We're going to get right into the parts, but first, if you guys could please, if you do enjoy the video, make sure to like and subscribe if you're new, because this definitely took a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of editing, lots of fun stuff to make this video for you guys, and I would really appreciate if you guys could leave a like or subscribe if you enjoyed it. So I'll hand it off to me with the parts list. Alright, so the first part I purchased was my case. There's no real reason to necessarily buy your case first. I just like to have an idea of what my computer is going to look like aesthetically before I actually build it. Just a personal preference thing, not really important. And the case that I bought was an iMicro CA-IM1627D. If any of you are curious what the model number is, and it came with a 450 watt power supply. The case looks really nice. It has two USB 2.0 ports in the front, plenty of room inside, 7 hard drive bays, and the included power supply. You'd have to pay 20 or 30 bucks for power supply with similar wattage, and I've never noticed any screen flickers or anything like that. But this is the one piece in my computer that I would not recommend anyone else buy, and the reason for that is that they did not include hard drive mounting rails, which meant that my hard drives had no way of being mounted unless I used pencils and rubber bands. That was the biggest suggestion on the internet. Or if I went out and bought a conversion kit that turned a 5.25mm drive bay to a 3.5mm drive bay. It ended up only being about $8, but it's still irritating and an inconvenience and just an additional step that shouldn't be there. So I wouldn't recommend that you buy, at least not from the people I bought it from on eBay. But luckily enough, it was only $36.69, and I do like the case, but I wouldn't recommend it just because it's nice to have your case come with all the parts that you need right out the box. Now, the motherboard I bought was the MSI A55M-P33. It is a micro ATX board. It came with 2 RAM slots, a PCI Express 3.0 slot for a graphics card, and a couple of PCI Express slots for expansion. It also had 6 USB ports, giving my computer a total of 8. Unfortunately, they're all USB 2.0, but at this price point, you can't really expect to get 3.0 out of your motherboard. But if you really need 3.0 ports, you can head on over to Newegg. They always have a PCI card for sale that'll give you an additional 4 micro USB 3.0, not micro USB 3.0, regular USB 3.0 ports, and if that's really something important to you, you can fix it that way. Now, the most important thing about this motherboard is its architecture, and that is FM1. And when you're shopping for your processor or motherboard, when you're building your computer in general, this is the most important thing, the one thing that you absolutely cannot screw up, or you're going to probably end up losing a lot of money because you'll probably break your processor trying to install it. Make sure that your socket in your motherboard matches the socket in your processor. In this case, it's FM1. You can see it in the stats. It'll say on your processor that it's socket FM1, and on your motherboard somewhere in the stats it'll say socket FM1, or whichever particular socket that you're using. Double, triple check to make sure you're using the right socket, because if you don't, you'll probably, when you try to install your processor, smash your pins on the back of the processor and completely break it and possibly end up destroying your motherboard as well. And there's a good chance you won't be able to get it replaced under warranty, which would suck. And speaking about processors, the one I chose was the AMD A6 3650. Now, this was the riskiest part of my computer because it was the most cheaply priced compared to its regular retail price, usually $80 or $90 on Newegg. You can get it from some East Asian places for about $70. It takes like 2 weeks to ship it, and it's just sketchy as hell. And I got it used from a guy on eBay who didn't have as many sales as I would like. But this is a quad core clocked at 2.6 gigahertz stock, and it turbo boosts up to 3.3. You can, if you would like to, you can overclock it even beyond that. But to keep things cool, I've kept it at stock. And it has integrated graphics that are really above par. You'll get 30 frames in modern games and 60 to 100 frames in Minecraft just using the integrated graphics, which is cool. I mean, that's decent to play games on or whatever, But the best thing about the graphics is that they will crossfire with a discrete graphics card. And what that means is that if you buy a graphics card up to a 6670, which I did, spoiler alert, it will combine with the graphical power of your processor and essentially give you two pretty decent graphics cards that will really let you get more than acceptable frame rates at decent resolutions for not very much money. And speaking of money, this costs $35 plus $5 shipping from eBay. And I'm not sure if I gave the price of my motherboard. It was $39 also on eBay for free, and it was new. And then, since we were talking about graphics cards, we'll talk about mine. It's an XFX AMD Radeon HD 6670. It has 1GB of DDR3. It'd be nice if it was DDR5, but for $40 plus $575 shipping, you can't really go wrong. And it's performing pretty fantastically. I have it crossfired with the processor, as I mentioned, and I absolutely destroy basically everything I played, with the exception of Black Ops 2, and that's because when they coded Black Ops 2, they did not include optimization for crossfire, which I don't understand why, but that's a rant for another day. I still get about 60 frames a second. Oh, sorry about that. Just my phone going off. I still get about 60 frames per second, but I actually have to turn off crossfire because I get really crappy frames when it's on, and it's just irritating. But anyways, let's get into my RAM. It is HyperX Genesis quad channel, 4GB, that I bought from eBay for 31 bucks, used. I mean, RAM's usually pretty safe to buy, especially when you buy it from somebody who had like 21,000 sales, like the guy I bought mine from. And it's got a pretty fast clock rate at 1600 megahertz, like I mentioned, which is important when you're running integrated graphics like I am, because it actually uses that as video memory, so you need that. This is actually the one spot in my computer that I probably will upgrade in the near future or before I sell it, because I have an additional RAM slot and I'll throw 4GB in, but I couldn't fit it in the $250 budget, so I'll do that later. But it runs perfectly fine on 4GB. I just feel weird with it on 4GB. Now, next up we have our hard drive. I got a Seagate Barracuda, which I love Seagate drives, and it was refurbished, but for $50 for a terabyte with full 5-star reviews across the board, I couldn't go wrong. It's 72 RPMs and has a 32 megabyte cache, which is decent. I get acceptable loading times. If I had splurged and got an SSD, my computer would probably turn on in about 10 seconds, but it definitely wasn't justifiable within this price point, especially if you want to have any space for getting games on your computer. So it's a good hard drive choice. There's usually always something like that over on Newegg on sale for about $50, which is what I paid for this. Now, next up we have our CPU cooler. And you don't always need to buy a CPU cooler, because quite frequently you'll get one that comes stock with your CPU, but they're usually fairly crappy. And when I bought my CPU used, it didn't come with a stock cooler, which is fine because I wasn't planning on using it anyways. And I ended up getting a Zalman CPU cooler, and it's awesome because you can probably use this in just about any budget build, because it works with just about any socket of processor. Again, you have to match sockets up here, otherwise you won't be able to fit your cooler on your motherboard, which is just a giant pain. And this thing's a beast. It keeps it below 50 degrees Celsius even while rendering using the stock cooling grease. I have Arctic Silver, which is really nice, but I felt that it would have been unfair for me to use the Arctic Silver, which is the cooling grease that goes in between your processor and the heatsink of your cooler, because it would have brought my price up past where I would have considered it acceptable, despite the fact I already had it. So I just used the stock cooling grease that came with it, and it worked fine. And it only cost about 20 bucks from Amazon, and I was really satisfied with it. So that's all the parts for my computer. I'm not going to include the cost of my keyboard and monitor, because that just wouldn't really make sense, because there's no way you could keep it within this budget. And it's pretty likely you have a TV or a keyboard or mouse laying around that you can use. And the computer does have an HDMI out, so like I said, if you have an HD TV, you can easily use it as a monitor. Alright, so the grand total of this PC build ended up being exactly $260 and like 69 cents or something hilarious like that. And while we didn't quite meet our goal, I'd say we did manage to stay within a plus minus of about $10, and I'm really actually pretty happy with that. $250 for a gaming PC that's capable of doing the things that it's doing, from rendering out this video much faster than I could on my laptop to really just playing the crap out of some games. It was awesome. But there is one thing you guys probably noticed I did not include in the price, and that is a Windows license. Now, you guys can go out there and get Linux. It's free. There's all kinds of great distros, lots of fun. Or you can get SteamOS, which is also free, although I don't think they have full support for the type of hardware that's in here yet, so you might not want to go that route. Or you may have a friend who has a Windows license lying around, because let's be honest, Windows is still the king of gaming when it comes to computers, and it's just hard to beat all the different programs and stuff you can do with it. So if you're lucky, you got a friend laying around who's willing to give you a license key. That's awesome. And I also hear there are, you know, various marauders of the high seas who may be able to help you out, if that wasn't obvious enough. And I didn't recommend that to you, though. Your own idea. I do not support piracy. But sometimes when you're on a budget, things like that have to happen. So again, like I mentioned at the start of the video, this video took a decent amount of effort to make and decent amount of money, although I did get a computer out of that, so that's pretty nice. So if you guys could please support the video in whatever way you think it deserves, whether that's a like, dislike, or a hate comment, go right ahead. I love it all. So this has been Watersport115, and I will see you guys in another video. Bye bye.